This is a first for me. I'm actually scared. I'm overwhelmed. And I don't know really how to react to people treating me as if I'm already dead. And I'd happily be Ronan Tynan's Wild Irish Rose, provided he took me far away. But anyway, here we are. Thank you very much, IWF, for what you've done. But I think I have to do something unusual. Instead of starting with a lot of thanks, and there are a lot of thanks due, I'm going to start with an apology to Chad Fleming. I'm sorry, Chad, that I made your job so hard. That I didn't give you a video, and I didn't give you photographs of me growing up, and I didn't give you me playing with my dogs or catching a huge salmon or anything like that. But I was lucky because you got Ronan Tynan instead. So I'm sorry, Chad, I gave you such a hard time. You see, I come from a culture where we never speak well of those who are living. And so my vocabulary doesn't have the eloquence that I can usually draw on to thank people for doing me an honor. In Ireland, it's only when people are dead, but recently dead, that is, that we say wonderful things about them, and it's not uncommon to go to a funeral and to see the bereaved family looking at each other and say, "Did he have a secret life? I never knew he did this. I never knew she did that." But that's our country. So it's cultural for me to feel uncomfortable when you honor me in my lifetime. I feel unworthy. But I was brought up by a tough mother, and I have very close friends of mine, Peggy and Daphne, who came from Chicago and who've been friends of mine forever and remain, I'm happy to say, friends. And they wouldn't miss this event for the world, but they knew my mother Maisie. And my mother Maisie didn't praise her daughter. She was extremely critical of her daughter, and when I was appointed to the International Criminal Court, she tried it out with her friends, and she said, "You know, Maureen's a judge of the International Criminal Court, the ICC," and people would say, "The what?" The ICC sounds like a failed bank. So my mother decided that the ICC really wasn't a good enough court to be in. But I used to travel backwards and forwards with my famous dogs, who couldn't travel in a plane because they'd changed the rules. You couldn't have two dogs in any one plane. So we used to take the car, and I used to travel across from Dublin to Holyhead, across the breadth of Wales, across England, all the way down to Essex, to Harwich, to get the ferry to Hook of Holland and then The Hague. And because I had dogs and because the distance was big, I began to become very familiar with places that would welcome dogs to stay. So there was a place in Northamptonshire that I used to stay in very regularly. They didn't know what I did. Being English, they wouldn't dream of asking, so I didn't tell them. They didn't know if I was a drug smuggler or whatever, but they knew that I regularly went to Amsterdam. And anyway, my mother thought so little about the court that I thought I'd better bring her over and let her at least see my huge office on the 11th floor, looking down on the perpetual grey clouds of The Hague. But however, so I was bringing Mummy and the famous, infamous Maisie, who was about 4'0". And anyway, I settled her into the old rectory we were staying in, and I took Gideon and Gromit, my two dogs, for a walk. And when I came back, she was sitting in the living room of the rectory. She had a glass of wine in her hand, and she was surrounded by the couple that owned the place, who were giving her their rapt attention. And they stood up and said, "Maureen, "We had no idea that you were a judge of the ICC." And this is the court that my mother had denigrated. And they were so respectful. And I said, "Oh, just relax." I said, "There's nothing to get excited about. I'm a very ordinary person." And up jumps Maisie, who has never praised me in her life. And she said, "You are not an ordinary person." What that meant, the subtext was, how dare you say that I have a daughter who's ordinary? So when you grow up with an Irish mother who doesn't praise you and a Scottish father who certainly doesn't, you learn, to genuinely be modest, because there are too many people who want to knock you down. Now, anyway, having said all that, I'm enormously thrilled, even though I'm really scared when I've seen all the people who went before me. I have to say, I thought about all those people when I was looking at them, and I saw Rosa Parks, and I said, "Oh, thank God, somebody I can associate with." Rosa Parks was the sort of woman who asked questions, and I'm a woman who asks questions. And she said, "Why am I, as an American, traveling in a public bus, not able to sit where I want to sit?" And she changed everything in America. And I used to, in the early days, when I came to the bar and everybody said what you couldn't do, I said to myself, "I have the same law degree as the guys do. Why can't I be a trial lawyer the same as they did?" And I did it, and the rest is history. And I just want to finish with one quote from George Bernard Shaw, which is very, very appropriate for all of us women. "People who say it cannot be done should not interfere with those who are busy doing it anyway." Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Karen. Thank you to the wonderful women of the IWF. I want to just say one last word, which covers everything. My cup runneth over.